Hello, hello, and welcome to the next part of this little starter guide. This time we're going to be talking about refining and crafting. But before we do all that, I need to go and get more silver. And you'll notice here, I just got a little pop-up here. So this is what happens when you link your Twitch account to your Albion account. While watching Twitch streams that are partnered with Albion, you'll occasionally get drops. And those drops will be rewarded to you in games. And it's mostly just a community chest full of skins, mostly. And you can also, if you already have those skins, you can turn those into those little community tokens, and you can check the vanity store here in each of the major cities. You can check, they all have a vanity store, and you can see what kind of skins you can get. But anyways, back onto what we were doing before. So we're going to head out towards the black zone, but in order to do that, we need to go towards the portal zone. And you aren't tossed directly into like a danger zone where there's combat. There's actually like a city in the black zone that's connected to Bridgewatch. That shares the same market and everything. And I explained it before in my last video. And like when you go to the black zone through a portal, you become locked to that portal. I said it before, but I'll say it again. In the black zone, anybody can attack you. They don't have to flag up or anything, so you have to be very wary of other players around you. If you see a name pop up on the screen, you should always have your mount next to you. I don't do it here most of the time because I'm a decent player. I know if someone tries to fight me, I could probably get away, and I always inspect people that are on the edges of my screen. So what you'll notice that as I was leaving the portal zone, I activated one of those pools next to it, and basically it gives you an invisibility, but you're silenced at the same time, so you can't do any actions, which is really useful for leaving the portal zones, because usually there's a lot of gankers right at the entrance. So we use this to get a little bit further ahead, and in order to break that silence early, you can either log out but then cancel the log out, or you can just start harvesting and it'll pop your bubble, but you'll still be silenced for a couple more seconds. And here I forgot to eat my food beforehand. It would have been a little bit less dicey, but if you saw that fame, it was almost like 10,000 fame and like 1,600 silver from these mobs, which is pretty insane. Especially compared to what we were getting in the blue zone. This is definitely a lot more profitable. And another thing is, my set that I currently have on me is so cheap that even if I were to die, I made enough silver from just picking it up from mobs that I could re-gear pretty easily. There's so many things going on that I'll pause it here so I can explain it. So there's also the daily maintenance, which I might as well explain this while it's on the screen. So the daily maintenance happens at 12 every single day, and I believe the NA servers and the EU servers are both going to have the same maintenance times. And basically they just go down for 30 minutes, or roughly 30 minutes sometimes, but if there's an update, it usually takes a little bit longer for them to get back up. And another thing I wanted to point out is all these the colored resources next to me. On the bottom left of the screen, there's like a 5.1 ore, and then next to me there's a 5.1 terror bird for skinning. And basically, instead of getting flat 5 from these mobs, you'll get an enchanted version of it, which is 0.1. And these are worth a lot more than the default flat 4, because if you were to craft an item, it'd basically be a tier higher, which I explained all that in my last video. But anyways, let's go back to this. As you spend more time playing Albion, you'll kind of recognize packs of mobs, and you can kind of guess whether or not you can take them. Here, there's two I guess mini bosses I would call them, because they have the circle below them, and they're a little bit stronger. And I don't have the tier 5 Reaver yet, so they're doing a lot more damage than they should. So I try to pick off one or two mobs before I go for the bosses. And since we weren't in combat with another player, we just get downed and we don't actually die. Oh, and in case you were wondering what this little red light of this dungeon next to me is, this is the corrupted dungeon. So this is basically the 1v1 corrupted dungeon you can do for solos. Basically, if you want to do if you want to do PvP but you don't want to get ganked by a squad of 10, you can do the 1v1 corrupted dungeons. And yeah, those are pretty fun. Now, as you saw here, I finally got my tier 5 Reaver, so now when I fight this boss, he's not going to do nearly as much damage as he was doing before. And sometimes shit happens. You're trying to dodge stuff. Like, this is also something I'm going to be really happy about when I go to the EU servers, is that my ping will be different. And I'm not going to get hit by these, like, circles that I have basically, like, a whole second less to see them coming. And even if I'm moving out of it, if I'm just barely inside that circle as I'm moving out, it's still going to hit me regardless because of the desync and all that, yada yada. NA servers. I'm also in tier 3 gear, which is like way lower than these tier 5 mobs, so my item power is definitely not where it should be, but I'm still able to take them on, which is why nature is like really strong as a tier 3 weapon. But I think it's time we went back and upgraded our gear. So another thing I talked about in my previous video is the daily activities. So there I completed the daily challenge, and I was able to claim a tome that gives you 10,000 fame, which is really nice. Yeah, and while I'm doing the loadout for like a tier 4 set, I still have the notifications going off because I'm getting so much fame that all the items I have on me are getting a bunch of levels in the spec and in the general tree itself. So I'm getting so many like notifications of stuff leveling up. Yeah, and here I don't have access to like the tier 4 scholar shoes since I didn't use the tier 2 cloth shoes at the very beginning. So I went ahead and bought an extra pair of tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4. That way, once I level up, I can just swap them out. Alright, and you'll notice that the day of time has changed because I came back after the maintenance, and we're just going to go out, grab a bit more silver, and I'm just going to skip ahead over to when we start doing some crafting. And yeah, just before I teleport back, I also wanted to like point out, like, if you attack a player, you become outlaw, and you can't return to the city as an outlaw. You have to wait for the timer to go down, and you can see it like run under your portrait. That little like crossed shield icon is your outlaw status. And there's also an ability in the game. Each mount has this ability which allows you to teleport back to town for a certain price of silver. So the price of silver depends on how far away you are from the last town that you were in, and it also depends on what you're carrying on you. Will also change the price of the how expensive it is to go back. Here it was only 4K, so I decided to do it anyways. I'm not sure I said it before, but it teleports you back to the last town that you were in. So let's say you started Bridgewatch, you went all the way across the map, right outside of Sterling, it would teleport you all the way back to Bridgewatch, and not the closest town. Anyways, now that we have some silver, let's start doing some crafting. So, best way to get started is going up to your destiny tree on the right side and looking at these little green branches here and kind of like figuring out what kind of weapons you want to craft. So here I wanted to go for the daggers, and in order to unlock the daggers I needed to craft here 2 bows in order to go to that side of that tree, I guess. And another thing that the loadouts are useful for is for crafting. So this thing is especially useful for like buying like bundles of stuff without having to go to the shop and buying like stacks, like 1 stack at a time. So previously I checked how much wood I needed here. I think I check again. So you can just type in like a tier 2 bow and it'll tell you what the requirements are to craft it. So I checked it and it's 32 pieces of birch wood. And before I buy it, I also wanted to show like the price difference between like crafting and selling. So this is a very important to check. If you're going to start crafting, you need to check like how much it costs to buy all the resources and how much those items sell for. So here, for example, it'll cost me 416 silver in order to buy all the resources I need, but the item only sells for 200. So this is very important actually at the beginning of your your crafting journey. It's not going to be cost efficient. You're not going to be making silver off the first stuff you craft, but it gets a lot better the further you go. Like the more spec you get into it, there's also like the whole adding focus to your crafting, which will also increase the amount of money you're making, which I'll go over in just a second. But first I also wanted to point out, like here, when you're looking for buildings to craft in the cities, always check the tax on these buildings, because people will put them at the max 9,999, and you're basically paying, you know, the most amount possible in order to craft. Alright, so I made my way over to the Hunter's Lodge, and now I can start crafting these bows. And you'll notice there's this nifty little focus button down here. Now, sadly, you cannot use focus if you don't have premium. So you have to have premium active in order to use focus. So I couldn't show it in this example, but I'll hop onto my main account and show it later. But basically, what focus does is it increases the amounts of resources your like your return rate. So instead of being like 15%, it'll be like 40%, for example, or somewhere around there. And you get 10,000 focus every single day. And you can use focus for example, on your island, which I haven't shown yet. That has to be it'll probably be another video. On your island, you can use focus on like when you're uh, petting like your animals, or when you're watering your plants or your crops in order to increase their yield rates. You can use focus on those, or you can use your focus for refining or crafting. But for now, since we don't have any premium, we're just gonna have to like go for the 15% resource return rate. But real quick before I do this, I also want to show you something else that increases the amount of return rate you get for crafting. So each major city has a bonus for specific crafting stuff. Like for example here, you get like a beans and goat's milk. Well, basically on your island, if you're farming these specific things on your island, they'll have like a bonus yield rate. And you can have an island in every single major city. And I believe in order to get islands, you also need to have premium. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's locked behind premium for the moment. But the good thing about Albion is that you can get premium free to play. You just have to get that silver, and starting off is obviously kind of rough. But Albion has like a lot of like high risk, high rewards kind of stuff, or even low risk and high rewards. Like for example, in the Mist, like you can go in like 4.1 sets, which is kind of like the cheapest set, but with a little decent item power if you have a lot of spec in it. You can use like very cheap sets to go around and just try to like steal chests or steal objectives, and sometimes those chests will have some like real insane like tier 8 loot, which is very expensive, and then you could sell those, and you're basically making a lot of money with very low risk. But obviously if you go like, you know, high item power and like high like tier 8.3 gear, you have more chance of winning. But like there's also chances like you get ganked, you can lose all that stuff. So it really depends on how you play it. But in Albion, I might do a video on this like someday if I can, where I get premium in like one day, like do like a free account 0 to hero and get premium in one day, which is definitely doable, but for more experienced players. But anyways, we're gonna get sidetracked here. So back to our crafting. So we crafted our bows here, and you'll notice that we're halfway through like getting the actual tier 3 unlocked. But there's one little thing you can do with these tier 2 bows, is that you can study them. So in this last tab here, you can put those bows in and study them, and it'll give you like knowledge towards crafting those weapons. And you can use focus to get a bit more XP out of it, like crafting experience. And there you go, we've unlocked the dagger tree in tier 3. So I'm just gonna do another example real quick, where I'm just gonna craft some tier 3 daggers. So I'm just going to quickly make a loadout, have everything ready, and then I'll just skip on over to the crafting. Alright, I'm back, and I have all the stuff I need in order to craft them, and you'll notice here I have a higher return rate, and that's because, like I said before, this city has an increased bonus to crafting daggers, so I get a little bit more return rate. And you'll notice I have some leftover like birch logs in my pockets, and that's also from the return rate. So that's why it's very important to keep track of the return rate and where you like the refining bonuses and which city you're crafting in, because those return rates can also make you silver. So let's say, for example, the amount of resources required to make a weapon is the exact same price as that weapon. Well, if you use your like the focus and you have the refining bonuses, you're making profit right off the bat. Like, not even without focus, you're making profit, because you'll get a return rate on those resources, so you'll be making a little bit of silver from the return rate. And after selling the items, you'll get the cost of the resources back. So that's just basically how you make money in Albion. And here you can't really see it because these items are worth very little. But as you get to further into the specs and you get your premium and you start using focus to craft and you get a lot more return rate, you're going to be making a lot more silver. And also, I forgot to mention another thing when you're crafting with the specs. I think I mentioned it in my last video, but there's another thing when you're crafting with your specs is that there's a chance the quality will be upgraded. So the higher spec, there's also increases the chance of the quality being better. I think with focus as well increases the chance of quality being better, which also increases the price of what the item will sell for, because the higher the quality, the better the item power. So for example, if you get like a masterwork quality, which is like the golden border around an item, that's the best quality you could get for it. And usually those items, especially like in the 8.4, 8.3 category, those things are worth millions. But now that we have the basic idea of crafting out of the way, let's go on over to refining. And it's basically the same thing. You basically just get the tier 2 resources and craft it into tier 3. But an interesting thing with refining is that as you go to higher tiers of refining, you always need the like previous resource. So if you want to make tier 3 leather, you're going to need tier 4 leather and tier 5 hide. And there's also one thing that kind of sucks with the loadouts is that you can only have a max of 100, like a stack of 100, and that includes everything in your pocket. Like you can't have 2 stacks of 100. You have to have, 1 stack of 100, or like 2 stacks of 50, which, kind of sucks, but yeah, it's one of the limitations with the loadout. So yeah, once you've bought your tier 2 hide, you're going to go over to one of the refining places for it. And unfortunately for me, I probably should have checked it before I started doing the refining, but each of the stations here in Bridgewatch have their tax set up to 9,999. And it basically, it doesn't matter here for tier 2 resources because it's kind of like the beginner resources, but when you go to tier 3, you're going to have to pay like a bigger tax for using up their nutrition. And basically every time you refine something, you're using nutrition from the workers, and you have to like, the people who own the buildings have to feed them in order for them to work. So and basically you're just paying a tax on the amount of like food you're using up of those workers. So I was just barely under the amount I needed to get this thing to tier 3 refining, so I went back and grabbed another stack of 100, and even though it wasn't really worth it, I might as well, since I'm going to be needing the tier 2 leather in order to make the tier 3. Also, I'm pretty sure I showed it before, but I didn't say anything about it. In the when you're crafting weapons, the first tier 2 and tier 3, I believe you can't use your learning points in order to like make it level up faster. But I think once you get to tier 4 and you get to the specialized stuff, you can use your learning points in order to get your crafting skills, up faster. But yeah, here, like I said, you're gonna need, in order to make tier 3, you need to have tier 2 leather and then tier 3 hides in order to craft. And you should always check, like like I did here, check the leather, like the tier 3 leather that you're trying to make, and look at the requirement, like the recipe for it, like the required items you need in order to make it. Because as you go up higher tiers, you're gonna need more hides. And you'll notice here that I'm overweight. So one ways to like circumvent this or avoid it is to like switch your boots over to the carry weight mode, and also having a bag on you will also increase how much you can carry. Another thing you could do is also, instead of using the horse mount, you can use the ox, which can carry more. But there's a unique thing with horses and oxes. So on a horse, when you dismount your horse and you leave the zone and it disappears, you'll still be able to carry more than you would without a horse. But for example, with the ox, if you were to get dismounted on an ox, even though it can carry more while it's like near you or active, if you leave that zone, the bonus carry weight that the ox gives is no longer available. So you'll have like you're basically not getting any bonus reduction to the amount, or increase the amount you can carry when the ox is gone. Hopefully I explained that well enough. I know it's kind of confusing, but you'll see it. You can test it for yourself. Just go overweight, or go like to where your carry weight's yellow. Hop on an ox, and you'll see it turn green. And then if you leave the zone where your ox is, it'll go back to yellow. But anyways, yeah. In the background here, I'm just going back and forth, selling it and then buying a little bit more, then selling it the stuff that I craft. But to be honest, it's not. I'm not really making any money here. I've actually been losing a lot of money just showing this off because obviously the tax prices and everything here are insane, and I'm not getting any bonus to refining, and I don't have any focus, so I am losing a lot of money here at the start. But I think it's like that's the thing with crafting and refining is that it's an investment. You need to have silver and be able to put a bunch of silver into it so that you can get your specs up, and then like once you start getting your spec up, you'll slowly start making more and more money. And another thing you could do, which I like to do as a crafter, is I like to go to Caerleon, and there's a black market there, which I think I'll explain that in the next video because it's definitely interesting. Because my next video will be a little bit more of like a money maker guide, I guess, like some quick ways to make some easy money. And so in Caerleon there's a black market, and as a crafter it's very interesting because in the black market they'll straight up buy like some of your items for sometimes more than what you'll buy, like sell them for in the marketplace. So it's something you have to check because other players are doing it too, so it's not easy to find stuff that will sell more on the black market than it sells in the marketplace. But if you do, it's definitely worth, you know, having that crafting spec and everything in order to craft the item, sell it on the marketplace. So in my next video I'm going to do a little guide on like the black market. I've done videos on it in the past, but you know, I'll do it again for old time's sake and show you guys how to make some quick money off the black market. But if you've been looking at the video, so I went ahead and went on to my main account on the ANA server, and here I was on my island here. So the island that I showed before, if you go back and look at it, I have like a fully like bought out island. I bought all the expansions to it as you can, and I have like a bunch of farms. I have a bunch of crafting buildings on there. And here in the marketplace, I'm gonna just show like refining the tier 6 resources as an example. And as you can see there, the prices of hide is kind of expensive. 160 more silver each for each little thing, and I'm buying like 40 of those things. So yeah, it's kind of expensive for what it is. And like I said before, you always want to compare the prices. So here I have like the resources required to craft, and here I have the what it would sell for. Alright, so here we're losing about 14,000 silver for selling these, but you gotta remember I'm getting a roughly 40% return rate, so I'm gonna be able to craft a little bit more, and hopefully, if I'm correct, I should be making profits here. So like usual, you know, I'm checking around to see if there's any places that I can refine this stuff at, and sadly people are, you know, giant wankers, and they don't give people access to the crafting building, so I had to go to my own island for this one. And here's what I couldn't show before. So with premium, I can now use my focus in order to craft, and you can see it boosts up the return rate. And as I'm crafting, you'll see that the estimated value of the stuff in my pocket is slowly increasing. And that's basically what focus is for. So if I were to craft this without focus, I would be losing like I said, 14,000 silver, I think, for just the whole stack that I did here. But since I was using my focus and I was getting a 37% return rate, I was able to craft more than I would have normally. And with that extra bit of stuff that I crafted, I'm making, you know, I'm in the profit zone. Now, obviously here it wasn't a lot of stuff that I was crafting, 'cause this is just an example, but normally you would buy a whole lot more and you would use up a lot more of your focus. Here I only use like, what, 300 focus or something like that, which is nothing. So if I were to, you know, use a lot more of my focus, obviously I'd be making a lot more silver out of this. So yeah, just a quick recap. Check the price of the stuff you're buying and seeing if it's worth selling or not, because some stuff you can just craft without focus and it'll be worth something, and if you add focus on top of that, you're just making a lot more profit. So always look at check the prices on the market because they change every day. And yeah, I hope these guides have been helping you guys, and you know, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one, and I'll show off a little bit more of like some bigger money guides.
Living in a crowded dream, searching for the quiet that you need to